we want to go ahead and get started so that we have plenty of time for your questions and for discussion. We're going to start first with a prayer by Dr. Balzotti.
Our dear Heavenly Father, we're so grateful to come together here as members of the English department, as students, and as former students of the English department. We pray, Father, for the presenters that their message might be clear, that they might convey what they came to share with us. We also pray that we might have questions for them, that the questions that we need to ask for our own trajectory in our own lives, we can ask these presenters and find answers to those questions. We say this prayer in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. So this is, I think, our 6th of these alumni panels that we've hosted in the English department. And first of all, my name is Trina Harding. I'm the internship coordinator. If you haven't done English Plus yet, you'll probably get to know me. Come and talk to me about some of your options for English Plus and how to get an internship and how to sign up for the course and everything. So these alumni panels are a result of some research that we did with English graduates from our department. We did the research in 2020, and we looked at graduates from the prior 10 years and looked at where they were and how they were using their English skills. And one of the main things that respondents said is that they really wish they had seen more real-life examples of how people were using their English skills and the path that they took to get where they are. So that's why we have this event for you. Before we get started, I do want to point out a couple resources. First of all, you may want to consider applying to be a Research and Writing Center tutor. They are hiring right now. There's an information meeting. You can go from this event right over there to find out more about that opportunity. A lot of our students have talked about how helpful that's been in planning out their next steps. So these are some resources that we've put together for students that I just want to make sure you're aware of. We have, on our English department website, we have an English at Work tab here where we have collected some of these resources for you. So if you want to watch this panel and the previous panels, you'll go to this English at Work panels tab. But we also have this English Alumni Stories page where you can see even more short stories of what graduates from our program are doing, how they talk about their skills, how they talk about their experiences here as well. And this can help you if you're looking to understand better what you can do with your degree. If you want to network with some of these people, they've included their contact information, and you're welcome to reach out if there's somebody doing something that you're interested in as well. So I just wanted to make sure everybody knew about those resources, that you can find them. So we are going to go in this order for our presenters, and once all 3 presentations are done, we will have time for your questions and some discussion. So be thinking while they're talking about what you'd like to know more about. So we're going to go ahead and start with Juliana.
Hey guys, really nervous but happy to be with you this morning. I started at BYU as a transfer student in 2015. I was halfway through my English major, and I was really nervous about being able to support myself and be hireable out of school. I don't know if anybody's ever felt like that. I had a lot of tunnel vision and a certain amount of desperation. I had some room left in my degree, but not enough to take all the classes that maybe I wanted to. So what did I do here? I finished an English major. There wasn't just a lot of, English Plus wasn't really up and going, at least for me to pay attention and have time to do it. Creative writing, concentration, some of that stuff wasn't around. So I minored in anthropology and Arabic for a master's degree that I didn't end up getting, but I really loved my experiences. I did an internship, via Trina. I was walking down the hall past her office and saw that they were starting that up for the first time and went in. Unfortunately, my internship didn't, they asked me to do like 3 tiny assignments for the whole semester because they never had an intern before and they didn't know what they were doing either. But really the benefit for me was being able to work with Dr. Jean Balzotti. And I was able to TA and RA for him for the rest of my time here at BYU, which I say he sponsored my whole last year of college, but he really did help sponsor my study abroad because I was working my whole study abroad in Jordan, but I was TAing and grading papers till late at night, but it enabled me to go. So as I finished up graduation, I was really nervous. I didn't know where I was going. I was looking for writing jobs and I wasn't finding anything. And I also felt a certain amount of imposter syndrome, like, oh, I don't have enough experience. My internship didn't work out like I thought. And I ended up, again, with that desperation of needing to make money, I had student loans coming due. I ended up working for a logistics company in trucking for about 10 months. It was horrible. I was on a sales floor. I developed the mouth of a sailor talking to these truckers. And it was not a happy time. And as I finished that, it was another level of the imposter syndrome, thinking, it's been a year and I haven't done any writing. Who's going to want to hire me? Fortunately, I did get an interview with Wavetronics here in the Utah County. They saw my InDesign experience with Dr. Balzotti working on his textbook. And they were interested in that because they used InDesign exclusively for their technical documentation. I was there for a couple of years, and through the pandemic, which I was really grateful for, but as things were kind of slowing down, job market was starting to pick back up a little, I was really nervous, again, about being able to stay relevant because I didn't have any kind of coding experience or writing with code. And in the software, the tech company industry, I was seeing that that was something that tech writers were needing. So I ended up getting a job here at Nexio. It's just an entry level they took me on, even though I had a couple years experience because I didn't have that coding experience. And I discovered that I hate it. I was in GitHub every day. I hated that, a misplaced comma could throw off your whole project. My boss was dating his long distance girlfriend in California and not around to help me solve things. And the company was going through a lot of changes and they had a couple of rifts. And so I decided I would just find a new position. So I've been at Domo here in Pleasant Grove for a couple of years now, and I love it. Just to show you a little bit of what I've done. So these aren't documents that I per se worked on, but very similar. So this first one is at Wavetronics. This is just one kind of thing that we did. These line drawings I did not draw, but I was really grateful for Dr. Balzotti making sure that we could do this in Illustrator during my time here at BYU. Nexio, we were in writing kind of this reference documentation for APIs. And it was a really good experience to find out that I didn't love it. And now at Domo, I'm mostly writing help articles to be self-serve for our customers. At a company of 900 to 1,000 employees, I'm the only person that does what I do. So I maintain a knowledge base of about 2,500 articles, and it's a mess. It's really heavy. They haven't had a technical writer till I started for several years, and they even moved the technical writing position out of product, which usually you're kind of embedded with the team. So that's been trimming the fat a lot, but I still feel like I have something to do there because I am doing that. But occasionally I get pulled into other stuff. I was up this morning at 6 helping write 2 speeches for our executives to give in a couple of weeks about how our company is meeting the challenge of AI. So that's been really fun. A couple of things I wanted to say about technical writing. It's a lot about relationships. And for my anthropology minor, that's something that I love, getting to know people. And so that's been huge. I've been able to use that. I enjoy the translation aspect from Humanities, being able to speak Spanish and Arabic and apply that, taking technical jargon and things from the product managers and turning it into layperson language. You have to be okay with some repetition or a lot of repetition and writing to a style guide. Really, people only are going to know that I'm there if that's a bad thing. I don't have a lot of role visibility because I'm just in the background. Nobody's supposed to know I'm there. I'm never going to get called into a customer call. However, our users can and do expect that certain things are going to be able to find the same place in different articles, and so I'm kind of pulling that together. And I've discovered that having a good manager, as with all jobs, but maybe for my job, because it's so siloed in companies a lot, is essential to help you build bridges and let executives know what you need and what's going on. Along with that, I just wanted to say that life is way more than your career. And so as I finished school and I felt that anxiety and worried and tunnel vision about being able to make money, I'm really grateful that God has a bigger view of that of my life. I've had a lot of wonderful opportunities besides my career. That's definitely part of it. I am certifying this spring as a 500-hour yoga teacher, and my job allows me to teach a yoga class weekly in Spanish Fork, which has been really fun. And so basically, God just is more interested in you as a whole person than just your career, so keep involving Him. To finish, just a couple of recommendations. This slide ended up weird. Take classes about what you're interested in, editing, creative writing. My Arabic and anthropology, those interests have informed my career in other ways and brought joy and passion to technical writing, which isn't necessarily full of joy or passion, but it can be. And a couple of things, if you are interested in writing, if you're interested in tech writing specifically while you're at school, take some coding classes, take a development course. See if you like that or if you don't. If you do, you'll do really well in kind of those embedded settings. If you don't, there's still technical writing jobs available and they need you. You just might want to transition away from that. If you're interested in graphic design but also want to write, I recommend looking into UX. I didn't know that UX writing was a thing at school. I just didn't know a lot. You're probably more educated than I am. But if that's something you're interested in, that's an ever-widening career. There's lots to do. And then if you find yourself wanting to use lots of big, beautiful language to convince people to take action, try for content or marketing experience in your internships and your classes. I am currently trying to train somebody with content marketing background to be a technical writer. And it's not even so much the skills, because she can do that, it's like kind of the way she thinks. And I'm asking her to question everything the product managers are telling her and not just taking it at face value. And she doesn't really know how to do that. So she'll be fine, we'll make it work, but I don't know that she's as happy there. Don't pigeonhole yourself, there are a lot of options. Keep learning. When you get a job, and you all will, talk to your companies about what they do for personal and employee development. Like, will they reimburse you to take a course on something you want to take? I'm currently working, it's a slow process, but on a course for learn UX writing for technical writers, and that's been really interesting. And then of course, like I said, involve God. He has a bigger picture than you do for your life, and he'll bring you back to this spot. Like, I texted my family this morning and I was like, you guys, I left home at 17, feeling unable to do much. And I get to go present at BYU today, and I just wrote 2 TED Talk style speeches for executives to give to my company. Like, if I can do it, all of you can. So just to conclude, please add me on LinkedIn. I did not do as great a job at school as I should have about building my network. You can and will use us in the future. And please email me about anything. Here are 3 specific topics you could ask me about that I can tell you my experiences, but I'm happy to at least brainstorm with you about everything else. And thanks for your time.
Hi everyone. Okay, my name is Ruth Favela, and I am an AI marketing manager for Tomorrow.io. Tomorrow.io, you may have not heard about. They are a weather intelligence company, and so I'm going to tell you about my journey from English major to my job now. And I'm going to talk to you about Tomorrow.io because it is it is the coolest company ever. So, I'm Ruth. I was at BYU from 2014 to 2018. I majored in English and I minored in editing. That combination set me up to do a lot of really cool things. So, about me. These are some photos from me at BYU. I'm from Mount Vernon, Washington. If anyone's from Seattle, please talk to me. I minored in editing while I was at BYU, and I worked the entire time I was at BYU. So my freshman year, I was working at the creamery. My sophomore junior, I worked at the in the special collections department at the library. If you've never been down there, great time, please go visit. And then I worked for the BYU conferences and workshops department in their editing content for their marketing department. And then the other thing I did was I participated in the Rural Mexico Literacy and Development Internship / Study Abroad program. Here I am in that bottom right photo in New Mexico. Post-grad, I have, because of my minor in editing, I was able to jump straight into editing jobs. And so I kind of went from being an editor to communication specialist to a writer. And my English degree helped me in that transition. A lot of things have been changing over the past couple of years with AI, so it's given me the opportunity to learn about it and try to strategically use it for marketing. I currently live in Salt Lake City, and because I work for Tomorrow.io, I travel like 7-8 times a year. The company is based in Boston, so I'm on the East Coast a lot. I have a dog. She is a precious little girl. She just turned 4. And we just had our birthdays because we're Pisces queens. We do a lot of traveling, so she comes with me everywhere. And I'm really into plants and video games right now, so life is pretty good. So this is my kind of what I did. So I was at BYU doing editing in English. I did editing for a couple of journals. I edited for Entemundos and A Woman's Experience, if you guys are familiar with those. And then I worked for BYU conferences and workshops. After I graduated, I was really like, okay, your girl needs a job. So I started editing they were like a real estate company. There was no growth, so I left. And then I started editing for another company in the insurance industry. At that job, I got to learn what marketing is. Besides just editing their content and reading it all, I had to understand how everything functions together with the sales team, with everyone in a marketing department, in a sales organization. And I always said yes. I always said yes. Whether it was like a new challenge or something that was like, hey, no one's doing this, can you take this over? I always said yes. And then I quit that job because there was no growth. So I found the startup world in Utah. There are a lot of companies based in San Francisco who have offices in Lehigh. And so I got a job with a company called Forethought, and they were barely starting their marketing department. So I was hired on as their second marketing hire and their first writer. So I took their content from they had 10 blogs on the site when I first started, and by the time I was laid off, there were over 100 pieces of content on that site. So I was the voice of that company. And in 2022, there were a bunch of tech layoffs. AI was a massive thing that came out in 2022. I'm sure you guys are familiar with ChatGPT, but when ChatGPT was released, I got laid off. So what did I have the opportunity to do? Use it, try it, figure out how it can do something for us. And so I took a contract with another AI company, and so I built out their website. And that gave me the experience in a bunch of other industries, which led to me finding Tomorrow.io. And I'll talk about that on the next slide, but in my current job, so I was hired in March of last year. Yesterday was literally my 1-year anniversary, and I was recently promoted to AI marketing manager. In my job, I was basically tasked to, we aren't hiring any more people. How can we make 2 + 2 = 5? And we were gonna do that by using AI. So lots of fun stuff. My job is pretty cool. So Tomorrow.io is a weather intelligence company, and one of the big things that we're doing is we are launching satellites into space to expand global weather forecasting. So this image on the left is our space launch from last year. We launched with SpaceX on a Falcon 9, two satellites last year. And the photo on the right is, the GIF is it's an image taken from the satellite up in space. So cool stuff. But what is tomorrow? What is weather intelligence? What are these words that I'm talking to you guys about? Weather intelligence, and I'll come back to the slide. Weather intelligence is more than a weather forecast. So Tomorrow.io created this category of weather intelligence. And instead of the forecast telling you there's a 20% chance of rain, mostly cloudy with a 40% chance of rain on a Tuesday, you get tailored industry-specific forecasts for your operations. So for example, stop the trains Thursday at 2 p.m. at mile marker 27 to avoid derailment. And there are use cases like this across any industry. So we work with companies like JetBlue, Ford, Uber, rail companies that you see here. And what we offer them is proprietary space data that then feeds weather models that are built in-house that then go into a weather intelligence platform. And the platform is what these large enterprise companies use to basically predict how the weather is going to impact their operations and how they can mitigate that impact. So it's a big thing. Now, how do you take all of this and tell the story of it, right? And that's my job. And so a big piece of this too is that, believe it or not, but 70% of the world right now does not have accurate radar forecasting. These blue areas are where you kind of have forecasting. One thing we kind of take for granted in the US is literally the ability to know if it's gonna rain in 2 days or not. Places in Mexico don't know if it's gonna rain. And so what we're doing is our satellites, which we have 2 up in space right now, we have a plan to launch 30 in the first set of the constellation to cover those areas. And so we launched last year. We have an in-house space and sensors team. They build the hardware in-house. And so you can imagine it's a really, really big story to tell. And so on the marketing side, this is everything we do, everything we've done. We have all these amazing all these amazing PR spots. We were featured on Nightly News last year, CNBC. We were just named one of America's top green tech companies by Time. Forbes just named us one of America's best startup employers. Like, there's a lot of stuff we do, but we're a really small team. We're literally 5 people. And the way stuff is split up is, as you can see on the bottom, content, product marketing, brand. And so I have to understand how to do all of that, but then also effectively use it and then start using AI in that process. And so the way we think of AI and marketing is that, like, you can use AI to do a lot right now. And we think of it in terms of, like, brainstorming and summarization and finding statistics, helping find news. There are so many tools out there right now that can do a better job than Google can at surfacing what you want to find. And so my job is to take these use cases and do we hire someone or do we use AI to do it? And so this is, like, you can build a massive marketing team, or you can find ways to strategically use AI to fulfill some of these areas. And so that kind of leads to my job. In my job, I wear a lot of hats. I am our head of content. I also manage our events and I manage our social media platforms. I'm also an executive ghostwriter for my executives. There's a lot of coordination. There's a lot that goes on a very small team. But a lot of it just goes back to, okay, how do I take this big idea and put it into digestible bits? How can I use tools to become an editor for video and audio, because I don't know how to use, what are the tools? I don't even know what tools are called. Like Adobe things, right? Like, so there are other tools right now that you can figure out how to edit video without being a Premiere Pro expert and that kind of stuff. My experience with AI came with working at AI startups. The first startup that I worked at was an AI chatbot startup, and literally part of my onboarding was learning what is AI, what are large language models, what is the tech and those words behind all these processes. I was writing content like, what is natural language understanding? I still don't really understand, you know? But I wrote it, and it made an impact for the company. And now I know so much more and how it's applied in a bunch of different areas. I work for a startup, so that means that I wear many hats. I'm constantly learning. There are so many opportunities for growth at a startup. Instead of them hiring more people, they promoted me because I can do what those other people would have done. You get to make an impact. I work on a remote team. Tomorrow.io is globally dispersed. We are based, they have offices in Boston, Golden, Colorado, and a few places globally. But for the most part, I'm on Zoom calls all day long, and despite being in mountain time, I work Eastern time hours. So there are some sacrifices that you have to make. Hours can be long because you're not paid hourly, you're paid to finish the project that is due by the deadline you have. And you have a lot of travel opportunities. Like I said, I get to go to a lot of cool places. Next year I know that I get to go to a few conferences in like New Orleans and that kind of thing, so that's exciting. So how am I using my degree? Here I am at a conference. I got to go to the American Meteorological Society's annual conference in January, and I ran the booth. I shook hands with people who work at NASA, people who work at Lockheed Martin, L3Harris, all those massive companies, people who work at NOAA. Like, it was a pretty cool time. But I write a lot. I write every single day. I do a lot of research, so much research, because we help companies in so many different industries, like rail, construction, wind. We help help organizations like the US Army. So how am I supposed to understand what the Department of Defense uses in terms of talking about these kinds of things? I'm a good communicator, and someone literally complimented me on this yesterday. They were like, thank you for being a breath of fresh air when it comes to communication, because people are not good communicators. And so if you can effectively write an email that is going to send your message and your point across, then boom, you've done a better job than a lot of people do. I'm constantly asking questions. I am a big believer in asking why. Why are we doing that? Why is that the process? Is there anything we can change? Is there anything we can improve? I stay open-minded to everything because I'm constantly learning about new things. I'm a very organized thinker. I have so many different note-taking tools. I'm sure you all do too. Solidify your note-taking process now because it will stay with you forever. And I like one thing that I really want to just if I want to emphasize anything, it's that I constantly take these massive ideas, analyze them, and break them down into smaller pieces. And I think that's the one thing that my English degree really helped me how to do, because that's a really big textbook. How do you break that up and help and understand pieces of it and the message of it, and then communicate that effectively? That's what I'm doing every day, but with our product and all the science stuff behind it and all the tech behind it. So, yeah. A few things that I wish someone had told me. For college, choose a minor early. I started my editing minor my junior year. Don't know if you could do it before your junior year, so that might not be an option. But I didn't know that I wanted to do a minor until I was like, oh shoot, well that other plan isn't gonna work out, I should probably do a minor. And you wanna be deliberate about it. I wasn't deliberate about it. I knew that I liked editing and that I liked correcting text. So that's why I did it. But if I had put some more thought into it, I think I would have gone about it a little differently. Ask for help when you need it. I did not ask for help when I needed it when I was in college. And that led to a lot of things that I regret. But at the end, like, now I am just like, hey, wow, if I had known that I had resources available to me, then I would have used those resources. And so I really love that this is a resource for you guys. In marketing, you don't have to study marketing or business to be a marketer. I did not know that. Your experience is so much more valuable than what you study. Because I had worked on a marketing team, editing their content, understanding how they created and what goes into that process, I was able to promote to a marketing team because I understand how they did it. I just had to go learn how to write about it and that kind of thing. And like Juliana said, network, learn to network, or try to just meet people. Over the past 2 years, my LinkedIn networking has expanded tremendously because of my job opportunities, and I even found this job because of LinkedIn. Somebody in my network shared a LinkedIn post saying, I'm hiring this person, and that's how I found it. So truly network with people and use that to your advantage. And yeah, thank you.
All right, I'm Jake Cutler. I'm over here. So I was here, well, I'll say this first. I turned 37 in January. For whatever reason, this year's made me feel older than any other birthday. And being on campus is not helping that. But it's good to be here. So I did my undergrad degree here starting in 2008. I chose English my first semester. I can't say I had really much of a plan when I chose it, other than just I liked writing. That was a subject I did well in high school, and it was interesting to me. I didn't know where I was going to go with it, but I declared my first semester and never really went back. After I finished, I knew I was going to do grad school in some way. I was at that point still thinking maybe doing a PhD in teaching, considering an MFA. But I knew I wanted to take a year off, and most of you could probably relate to this. Those 4 years that I was doing undergrad, I was also working, and so I had a lot of cool ideas that I could never spend time on. Just a lot of passion projects that stacked up and never got to them. So I wanted to take a year to try to do some of those things. So it was a very poor year, but a very happy year. I did things like I produced and directed a short film based on a story I had written. I paid the bills by substitute teaching and doing freelance work. Barely scraped by. I remember even, and I'll talk a little bit more about this right before I started my MFA in 2013, I'd started working with a band called the National Parks. I did our first tour the week before the semester started, and I had so little money that I had to bring a loaf of bread and a jar of peanut butter because I wasn't sure if I'd be able to afford to eat out for the week we were on the road. And my FAFSA hadn't kicked in yet. So, but I wouldn't change it. Don't regret it at all. It was a great year. I learned a lot, tried a lot of things. Really what I was trying to do, because I'd done a lot of writing, was get better as a visual storyteller. That's how I got involved doing music. I started doing music videos just for local bands. And so that started right as I was getting into my MFA program here. Emphasized short fiction. My thesis was a collection of short stories. And as I was working on that, I was still single at that point, so I was teaching a couple classes here, doing the MFA, and then managing the National Parks, the band, which really was a hobby, not something I'd even considered as a thing that anyone did. It had never crossed my mind that that was someone's job, but it was fun, it was interesting. It allowed me to do a lot of creative work that I wouldn't have done otherwise. And then by the time I graduated in 2015, they'd grown to a point where they were touring nationally, and it was still not paying well, but it paid. It was enough that I could do that for work. Do you want to go to the next slide? I threw this in here. This is a quote from George Saunders, one of my favorite writers. a way to maybe explain not only why I pursued English and an MFA, but also what we'll get into here, all of the career opportunities I've had since, is this is sort of at the crux of it for me, is the ability to share ideas in an interesting way. So the way he puts it, an idea or notion or image leaves the writer's mind, goes directly into the reader's, and has the potential to change what it finds there. And that was always just a really fulfilling thing for me, to get an idea that I had in my head, something that I was excited about it, and get it into someone else's. Just sort of drove me, was really motivating for me to get better at doing that. So whether that was just words on the page, or it was a music video or a short film, whatever it was that was sort of the basic project, and still is, honestly, that I'm pursuing. So it's led to sort of an untidy career path. I don't even know if you could call it a path. It was actually a weird experience for me to try to put this down on the page. And honestly, it drives my wife crazy. She still doesn't know what I want to do because I don't know. But these were the three categories that sort of my work history fall under. So marketing, media, and mostly music, and then teaching. So I taught for 2 years here, and then after my MFA, I chased my wife to Hawaii. She had transferred there. We met here, but then she transferred to BYU Hawaii. So I chased her out there. We got married there, and there for 2 years, and I taught at BYU Hawaii. So if you don't mind going to the next one. Again, trying to put this down in a comprehensible way. This is sort of how it looked for me. So going back to starting when I graduated with my undergraduate degree here. So my first job down here at the bottom was a freelance job for 97th Floor. It's an SEO marketing agency. So I just wrote blog articles for them. They were terrible. I hated it. I wrote probably 50 blog articles on food storage. There's not that much to say about food storage. But, if you come across something online about food storage, I may have written it. So didn't love that, but again, that was helping to pay the bills. I mentioned I started working with the national parks. Again, I just did. So I actually met the lead singer. He, through a friend, performed at a fundraiser for that short film I mentioned. So we connected there, and then I just loved the music he was making and offered to do a music video for free just because I wanted to do it. And then helped sort of promote that, and then helped him put on my first show. And then one day he told me, I hope you don't mind me telling people you're our manager. And really that was the first time that ever occurred to me as a thing. So did that again all the way through my MFA, and then ended up doing that for about 6 years. So as you can see, there's a lot of overlap. I was teaching while I was doing that. So even when I moved to Hawaii, I was managing the band, which wasn't a big deal because they were touring. So they were all over the country anyway. It didn't really matter where I was. And then I taught. And then we moved back to the mainland a month before our first son was born. And I was still doing the music thing, got the opportunity to work with the Killers. It was miserable. I'm glad I did it, glad I'm not doing it anymore. It was 80 to 90 hour weeks. My child was 6 months old, so my wife was basically a single mom for that because I was still doing the national parks as well. And did it mostly to network and make some connections to help the national parks. That was really sort of the motivation, but it was also helpful for me because, again, I had just sort of made it up as I went along as a band manager to realize that we were doing a lot of things right. And really what we were doing with the national parks and we sort of just worked out on our own was exactly what was being done at the highest level. They just had a lot more money to do it than we did with an indie band. So did that until the end of 2017, and then was sort of lost. What I realized working with the Killers was that I didn't want to be a band manager. My boss, who was the general manager, had been managing them for about 20 years, sort of saw what his life was like, and even though there was a lot of money involved, it was not what I wanted. And a lot of this was that I had a child now, I was married. Music industry isn't great for family life, so I was on call 24/7. You know, if they were in Australia and they needed something, they'd call. Didn't matter if it was 3 a.m. for me, I had to wake up and take care of it, and that just wasn't great when I really wanted to focus on family. So tried a bunch of different things. Tried to start a business that was essentially consulting with indie artists to help them get their careers going. Didn't work out because none of them had money, which I should have known. But still do, you can see the line still extends. I still help some bands out, mostly when they want to release a new album or a new song. I'll help them sort of pull that, all of the marketing together for that. And still really enjoy it, and that's mostly why I do it. It's just because I enjoy it. But then got to a point again, I was a dad, needed more steady income. I've been doing a lot of freelance stuff, and if you work in freelance, have done it already, it's unpredictable. You do a lot of different things. Opportunities come from wherever they come from, which was okay with me, not so much my wife. She didn't like the unpredictability of it. So I started looking for, quote unquote, real jobs. Got my first one it was Vivint Solar at the time. While I was there, it was acquired by a company called Sunrun, so they sell solar panels, residential solar. And it was in their marketing department. Honestly, didn't want to do it. My sister was the head videographer in their marketing department, and the creative director was hiring, and and this is lucky, this isn't typical, I didn't even apply. She's just like, you should hire my brother, and he called me, and that's how the conversation started. And took the first job there as a project manager, talking to him through it and sort of the responsibilities of it. This was really naive, I realize now, because I was coming from being self-employed and freelance. In my mind, I figured I could do that job in 20 to 25 hours, and then I could continue doing freelance and do music and some of the other stuff I was doing, which was true. That was accurate. It wasn't very hard to do the job that I did for them, but it was an office job. So they wanted me in the building 9 to 5, and so I'd find myself going and finding rooms on a different floor to do freelance work because I was done with my day job stuff. And I also didn't realize too, part of it was, I was overqualified for the role I took because of all of sort of the raw content marketing experience I built as working in music. And I felt that way, and I think my boss knew that too. And I figured I can get in there and very quickly sort of climb the ladder. Which happened. I was promoted a couple times in the 3 years I was there. The first one came within, I think, 4 or 5 months. So that worked, but what I didn't realize is most companies have pay band structures that there's a whole bunch of red tape to get a raise beyond a certain level. So I was basically anchored to the salary I came in at for that job I was underqualified for, which really held me back. Even though I was getting promotions, I still wasn't getting paid very well, even 2 or 3 promotions later, because it was all sort of linked to where I started at the company, which is something to be aware of as you get into the corporate world. So I did that for 3 years. When they were acquired, the Sunrun's based in San Francisco, so it became a fully remote job, which I loved because, again, it allowed me to just have the flexibility to get my work done in however long it took, and then spend time doing freelance work. So that's what all of this is down here. Just a handful of the companies I've done freelance work for on the side and continue to do, even in my job now. In the beginning of 2022, I jumped over to a company called Gab. Some of you may know Gab because it started here in Utah. So we make safe tech for kids, cell phones, smartwatches, software now too, like Gab Music. It's clean music for kids. Took that job mostly because of the mission of the company. I have 3 boys now. They're all young. My oldest turns 7 next week, so they're not ready for cell phones, but something I already worry about of, how to keep them sane in a digital world and, prevent them from having severe anxiety and stress because they're on social media from age 10. So that was a big part of it for me. I just wanted a job that I believed in the stuff that I was doing, and saw an opportunity there to really do interesting content. Because of the mission of the company, I saw that there was a lot of potential to tell interesting stories because you're talking to parents who are worried about their kids. So there's a strong emotional core there. It's very personal, and it's in tech as well, which changes all the time. So there's a lot of variety. There's always something new to talk about. So my current role at Gab, I think my title is managing editor. I essentially run the blog. So I manage a team of writers, and basically function like the editor-in-chief of a small online magazine, and that's where I'm trying to push it. I didn't put in a slide, thought about it, what the blog looks like right now, because I'm not proud of it. It looks like any corporate blog. It's sort of just like a dumping ground for content. There's not much thought put into how it looks. And since I took over, my big push has sort of been to meld my media experience with my marketing experience to create for Gab a legitimate online magazine that's really focused on just helping parents stay, in the loop with what's going on in technology, with the eventual hope of doing a more full media production studio where we're doing podcasts and YouTube series and more than just articles on the page. So that's where I'm at now. I put this up here in the corner. Actually moving back to Hawaii in July. Don't know yet if Gab is going to approve that. Keep that between us. My boss knows, but no one else does. So hoping to get approval to go fully remote, but if it doesn't work out, I will find another job. So something, short stories, my family, just feels like something my family needs. So we're going for it. Some of the other speakers mentioned this. Work, to me, is work. There's much bigger things. That's a big part of your life. The people I've worked with who clearly this is the only thing they have going on don't seem to be very happy. So definitely pursue other things outside of the workplace. As important as it is to have a job and to be able to, do something fulfilling with your career and, survive, get by if you have a family to provide for them. It's easy to, I think, get a little distracted and get too focused on that. So I think that's all I had.
I'm going to hand this off to Dr. Christensen, who's going to run our Q&A.
You each have very distinct stories, right? Paths, trajectories that you've been on, and so they are unique, right, to you, and might seem unusual to our students as they look at their own possible futures. But there are also elements of them that are very usual, I think, and it would be great for all of us to keep in mind those lessons as we sort of plot out our own futures. One thing I just wanted to pick up on, and then we'll open it up for a couple minutes of any questions that people have. Something Ruth said about you're in a situation and there was no growth, so you left. And it brought up the whole idea of a growth mindset by Carol Dweck and her research, growth versus static mindset. I wonder if each of you could just take like 60 seconds and say something about, especially at this stage in your undergrad careers, if it was important or if you didn't have a growth mindset at that time, and you had more of a static mindset, this kind of passive self kind of being moved through an institution, why that made a difference to the path you found yourself on. I'll start with Juliana, or whoever wants to jump in.
I'm thinking if anything was ready.
I think you're stuck with what ifs if you don't decide to do something when you are when you're in a situation where you get to choose of like, okay, is this a static situation or an opportunity for growth for me? One thing that really put things into perspective was the fact that I got laid off when I was the voice of a company. And that really was just like, oh, okay, so I need to look out for me and I need to have that growth mindset all the time, because if I'm constantly looking out for myself and truly thinking, okay, what is this impact in me, my life, and everyone around me? Is this the better outcome than me staying here and always thinking, well, what if I did that?
I think I had to learn about myself, and you learn by being in a situation. So I knew how I was in school. I didn't know how I was in the corporate world. And I ended up leaving my first job because my boss, he had a health condition and he really liked the benefits, and he had a family and he was like ready to just like lock in. And he had been doing that same job for 20 years. And I saw that like there wasn't anywhere for me to go, and I didn't want like sorry, Jake said, like, he didn't have a lot going on. He like went to work, went home, and hung out with his family, and I didn't have that. And I was like, I remember talking to a coworker one day, and he was like, if you don't have anything else going on other than work, then like your life's gonna be really sad. And I was like, I can't. Work is a lot of what I'm doing right now because I'm not currently married. I wasn't at the time, and I was like, I need to have something else to do. But I also need work to be something that I'm excited to come to every day. So that's why I ended up leaving, actually.
All right. Yeah, I would just suggest sort of defining what growth in what way, like what kind of growth matters to you. I think in the corporate world, a lot of people look at it purely as title and salary. So just getting to that next level up. Just the other day, I heard some advice that I thought was pretty good, is look at your boss's boss and think, do I want that job? Do I want their day-to-day experience? If you don't, you might not be on the right track. Because it is really easy to get in and say, okay, I'm working towards the next promotion. And then you find yourself getting in a position where what you do all day long isn't actually what you like doing. And that's part of why I moved from working in music, because I started because I was really involved in the creative side of it. So I was making music videos, I was designing the sets for the live shows, all of that kind of stuff. But then as the band grew, I started doing more and more admin work. And then we were hiring people to do the stuff that I actually love to do. And realized this is no longer, for some reason in my mind, I felt like it was like being on the freeway, like driving to California. You might head like straight south initially because that's going to be the fastest way to get you there. You know, it's not a straight line. And at a certain point, I realized this isn't taking me in the direction I want to go. I need to get off and go a different route. So just defining what kind of growth matters to you most, and then finding the opportunity that's going to sort of push you and make you uncomfortable in the right direction.
So unfortunately, we are hit the 10 of mark and need to vacate the room, but our alums can hang out for a little bit if you want to come up and ask them individual questions, so we can be kind of talking and migrating out into the hall about their current positions or past experiences. Let's give them one more round of applause, though.